The man who used to be my father gave my son a jagged rock inside an iPhone box for his birthday, and, with a smirk, said, "Only good boys get toys," like it was the punchline of a joke everyone else was in on. Everyone except my son. The living room stilled as he slid the sleek white box across the table, Leo's eyes wide with awe, fingers trembling with hope. "Is it really an iPhone?" he whispered, barely daring to believe. "Open it and see," Dad replied, sipping his coffee like he'd already won. I should have known. I did know. But I still watched as Leo opened the box, watched the light in his face flicker and go out the second he saw what lay inside. A dirty driveway rock, nestled where a dream should have been. Confused, Leo looked to me, his voice small. "Is this a joke?" And just like that, Dad's laughter filled the room, booming and self-satisfied. "Well," he said, like a comedian delivering his closer, "only good boys get toys. Right, Leo?" And then the hyenas joined in. My sister doubled over, wiping tears from her cheeks. My brother-in-law choked on his beer. Even my mother laughed and muttered something about classic grandpa. But Leo wasn't laughing. Neither was I. He just stared at the rock, cheeks flushed, jaw tight, shoulders slowly folding inward as if trying to disappear. And in that moment, I saw it, the mirror of my own childhood, staring back at me. That same defeated look I used to wear when Dad played these mind games on me. "Come on, lighten up," he waved a hand. "It's just fun." "It's not your real present," my sister added with a forced grin, nudging Leo's shoulder. But we all knew the truth. This was the present. The cruelty was the point. "Wow," I said, voice low but cutting. "You really outdid yourself this time." Dad shrugged, like humiliation was some rite of passage. "Maybe next year he'll learn some respect. Then we'll see about the iPhone, huh?" And that was the moment something snapped in me. I looked at Leo, his little fists clenched, refusing to cry, and felt a fury rise I'd buried for decades. No more. I looked around that room, at the people who had laughed when a boy's joy was turned into shame, and made a silent promise. They wouldn't see it coming, but they would remember it. 30 minutes later, they weren't laughing. See, this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time misfire. This was vintage Dad. He never raised a hand. He didn't have to. His weapon was mockery wrapped in parental wisdom, his discipline a slow bleed of dignity disguised as love. I grew up being compared, corrected, constantly reminded I was never quite enough. "You're not like your brother," he'd say. "He's sharp. You? Well, you try." I got a scholarship, built a company from the ground up, worked 3 jobs while studying, and still, he called me lucky, not brilliant, decent, not driven. And yet I kept showing up, kept giving him chances to see me, to value me, to love me the way I knew I deserved. But watching Leo's joy be shattered in front of an audience, his audience, was the last straw. That day, I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just stood up, quietly gathered Leo's things, and said, "Let's go, buddy." Dad's voice followed us. "Oh, come on, don't be dramatic." But I didn't look back. Not when I packed Leo into the car. Not when I texted my assistant to cancel the monthly check I'd been sending to cover Dad's property taxes. Not when I unfollowed every relative who laughed that day. Let them sit in the echo of their own cruelty. Let them realize too late that the family scapegoat had stopped playing along and taken the future with him. Because I won't raise a son who thinks love is a prize to be earned, or that silence in the face of humiliation is strength. Leo will know better, and so will they. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family gathering was just another stage for my father to perform his favorite role, reminding me and everyone else that no matter what I achieved, I was still the family's disappointment. I thought having Leo might change that. It didn't. Dad barely acknowledged him, never remembered his birthday, never asked about school, and when he did speak, it was with cutting remarks wrapped in smug advice. "Don't you think it's time to toughen him up?" he once said when Leo cried after scraping his knee. "You coddle him too much." Coddle? No. I was raising my son not to become the bitter man seated across from me, and apparently, that was a crime. So when he handed Leo an iPhone box for his 9th birthday and laughed as my son opened it to find a dirty rock, something inside me finally broke. "You know what's funny?" I said, rising slowly, every word sharp and deliberate. "You've spent your whole life convincing people you're the strong one, the patriarch, the backbone of this family. But really, you're just a coward in a cardigan." The laughter stopped like someone had cut the power. My mom's wine glass froze mid-sip. Nina, my sister, actually choked. Dad squinted at me, dismissive. "Watch your mouth." "No," I said, stepping forward, fury ice-cold in my veins. "You watch yours. You just humiliated my son in front of the entire family. For what? A laugh? A cheap shot to feel like a man again?" "I was joking, for God's sake," he snapped. "No, you weren't. You were performing. Like always. You pick someone smaller, someone younger, someone who trusts you, and you crush them for sport." I looked to Leo, who sat frozen, gripping his chair, trying not to cry. Then I turned back to them all. "You all saw it, and you laughed." The silence that followed was thick with shame. "You want to know what's really funny?" I said, smiling without warmth. "I actually bought him an iPhone, a real one. It's in the car. I was going to let Dad hand it over. I thought, just maybe, he'd finally act like a grandfather." A gasp cut through the room. "But you laughed, Nina," I said, staring her down. "You, a therapist, you should have known better." Her husband, always neutral, shifted awkwardly beside her. Even he couldn't pretend this was okay. My mom tried to interrupt, her voice brittle. "Can we not do this now? It's Leo's birthday." "Exactly," I snapped. "And you all ruined it." I turned and walked out, coatless, into the cold, retrieved the real gift from my car, and returned. I walked past their stunned faces and knelt beside my son. "This is for you," I said gently. "Because you are a good boy. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." He looked up, eyes wide, voice cracking. "Thanks, Dad." And that nearly undid me. I stood, turned to the room and said, "You had your little show. Now it's my turn." I pulled out an envelope from my pocket and dropped it on the table. "What's this?" Dad asked, wary now. "Updated power of attorney paperwork," I replied. "You're not on it anymore." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? The house you co-signed on? The college fund accounts you helped me set up for Leo? All of it. Revoked. You're done." "You can't just—" "I can. And I did." That's when my brother-in-law turned to Nina, confused. "Wait. What accounts?" Her face went pale. I saw the panic bloom. "Yeah," I said evenly, eyes on her. "Guess who's been quietly dipping into the family trust? Someone should have told you." "Be quiet," Nina hissed. "No," I said, calm and deadly. "You be quiet." And in that moment, the room, the same one that had burst with laughter at my son's pain, was silent for all the right reasons. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just standing up to them. I was walking right through them, and they could feel it. The balance had shifted, and I wasn't the disappointment anymore. I was the reckoning. Dad's hand hovered over the envelope like it was laced with poison, jaw clenched, knuckles white. But he didn't open it, because deep down, he already knew. He always knows when he's caught. "You're making a mistake," he muttered through gritted teeth. "This isn't how families solve problems." "No," I replied, voice colder than steel. "This is how a father solves problems when his family treats his son like trash." I turned to Nina, fire burning in my chest. "Let's talk about that emergency withdrawal from Leo's college fund. You told the bank you had my authorization." She froze mid-breath. I needed it for Ellie's therapy." "No," I said. "You needed it for your Bali yoga retreat. You posted the whole thing, healing my inner child on the beach. Cute caption, paid for by my actual child's education." Her husband stood, stunned. "Wait, you took money from Leo's account?" She opened her mouth to lie, but I cut her off. $20,000, gone. You forged my signature, claimed it was approved. I have the bank's report. The teller remembered you, said you smiled the whole damn time." "You're overreacting," she snapped, her voice cracking under the weight. "It's not like I drained it." "You stole from my kid. Don't try to dress that up as a misunderstanding." Mom stepped in then, her eyes already brimming with crocodile tears. "This is getting out of hand." "No, Mom. What's out of hand is the fact that Dad's been using Leo's social security number to open credit lines since he was 5. The room dropped into absolute silence. Even Nina sat down, pale. Mom turned to Dad, trembling. "What is he talking about?" I tossed a manila folder onto the table. 3 credit cards, small limits, all opened under Leo's name, using your address, all verified. Dad's face went ghost white. "You can't prove that." "Already did. The bank was very cooperative once they realized a minor's identity was being exploited. You'll be getting a nice little letter soon. Might want to clear your schedule." His voice shook. "I raised you." "And I trusted you," I snapped back. "And you used my son's name to protect your pathetic credit score. Played Grandpa of the Year while burying a 9-year-old in your financial rot." Mom sank into her chair like someone pulled the floor from under her. "You've gone too far." "No," I said, calm and deadly. "You all did. Years of silent dinners where I was the joke. Years of not being as smart as Nina, or as charming as Dad. Years of buying Christmas gifts you took credit for. Paying tuition for a niece who calls me boring behind my back. Covering your property taxes so you could go on cruises." I looked at every face in that room, unflinching. And I did it. Not because you earned it, but because I hoped you'd finally see me. That you'd look at Leo and think, "He's better than we were." But instead, you dragged him into the same toxic spiral I clawed my way out of. Dad's face turned red with rage. "You selfish, bitter little man. You're tearing this family apart over a stupid rock in a box." I laughed then. It wasn't pretty. It was years of grief, betrayal, and restraint shattering all at once. "Number, I'm not tearing it apart. I'm just turning on the lights so we can finally see the wreckage." I pulled out my phone. "What are you doing now?" Mom asked, voice shrill with panic. "Sending this folder to the attorney I hired last week, also CCing the fraud division at the bank, and, just in case, Child Protective Services. Someone should probably ask why a 9-year-old's identity was being exploited by his own grandfather." Nina jumped to her feet. "You're insane!" I met her eyes without blinking. "Number, I'm just done." Leo stood beside me now, the real iPhone in his hands, still unopened. He reached up, calm and certain, and took mine. "Can we go, Dad?" And that nearly undid me. I nodded, pride and heartbreak knotting in my throat. We walked toward the door. Behind us, Dad's voice cracked with desperation. "If you walk out of here, don't come back." I stopped. I turned around, met my father's eyes and said quietly but with finality, "You already made the choice, the second you laughed at my son." Then I looked at each of them, Nina, her husband, my mother, and let the words pour from a place I'd buried for too long. "I'm not your punching bag. I'm not your backup wallet. I'm not your scapegoat. I'm his father, and that's the only title I care about." With that, we walked out. The door shut behind us with a dull, definitive thud, and the silence inside that house? I imagine it's still echoing, but out in the driveway, under a cold, steel-gray sky, Leo looked up at me with eyes wiser than his years and said, "I'm glad you're my dad." That one sentence lit a fire I had no intention of putting out. The fallout came fast. The next morning, a text from Nina. "You went too far. Dad's furious. Mom hasn't stopped crying." I didn't reply. By noon, a ping, an email from the fraud department. The investigation was officially open. By 3 p.m., I got the call. "Mr. Turner, this is Detective Amanda Ross, Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to schedule a formal statement regarding the identity theft of your son." Boom. They thought I'd cool off. Thought I'd bury it like always. Not this time. This time, the pain became paperwork. The betrayal became evidence. And I was weaponizing every ounce of it. Within 48 hours, I'd filed a full police report. I handed over Leo's bank statements, tied directly to his stolen Social Security number. I sent in screenshots of Nina's forged withdrawal from his college fund. Even video from the birthday party, where they all laughed as my son opened a rock in an iPhone box. They stole from him. They ridiculed him. And now, they were going to face every ounce of it. In court. A week passed in silence. Then Mom called. I let it ring to voicemail. Her voice cracked under the weight of unraveling lies. "Honey, please. Let's just fix this internally. Family doesn't go to court over mistakes. Your father's not well. Nina's a mess. Just come over. Let's talk." I didn't even finish listening. Then came the letter. A formal notice from my father's lawyer. They were threatening to countersue for defamation of character. The nerve. You can't defame a man who handed a child a rock and told him he wasn't good enough. I called my attorney. "Let them try," she said. "We've got enough to bury them in broad daylight." And we did. The trial was set for mid-June. Civil court, fraud, identity theft, financial abuse of a minor. But I wasn't just chasing justice. I wanted the truth carved into public record, permanent and undeniable. Court day 1. The room was packed. Nina looked like a ghost. My father arrived in his best blazer, clinging to the illusion of control. My mother wore sunglasses indoors, her favorite brand of denial. Their lawyer tried to frame it all as a tragic family misunderstanding. "Mr. Turner," he said smoothly, "don't you think this has gone too far?" I leaned forward, every word sharp as glass. My son's name and future were used like spare change by people who laughed in his face. "You're right. It has gone too far. That's exactly why I'm here." The judge nodded. "Let's proceed." And we did. Day 2. Financial records. Day 3. The banker testified, recalling how Nina smiled while forging my signature. Day 4. We played surveillance footage, clear as daylight. Nina at the counter signing my name. She tried to claim I gave verbal permission. I produced audio messages proving otherwise. She crumbled on the stand, mascara running. But the judge wasn't moved. Then came my father's moment. Under oath, they asked, "Did you open credit cards in your grandson's name?" He paused, swallowed hard. I don't recall," he mumbled. Wrong answer. Because the bank had already confirmed it. His phone number was used for verification. His signature matched. The cards were mailed to his address. And then I dropped the final blow. a voicemail he'd left me just 3 weeks earlier, his voice smug and careless. "It's just some cards, for God's sake. He's a kid. He's not going to use the credit. What's the big deal?" The courtroom fell into a stunned silence, heavy as stone. Even my mother looked like she wished the ground would open and swallow her whole. The final ruling came swiftly. Nina was ordered to repay $2,200 to Leo's college fund, plus court fines. My father, fined and placed under investigation for elder fraud in addition to identity theft, had his case referred to the district attorney. I was awarded $25,000 in damages. But the real win was this: Leo's credit was sealed, his future safe, and the truth about my family exposed under courtroom lights. As we stepped out into the daylight, Nina chased us down the courthouse steps, her voice sharp with venom. "You've destroyed this family. Do you even realize what you've done?" I turned to her, calm and unmoved. "You destroyed it. I just exposed the rubble." She didn't answer, just stood there, blinking like a faulty light, slowly fading. Leo tugged on my sleeve. "Are we done, Dad?" I smiled. "Almost. Just one last thing." That night, I took him to the Apple store, let him pick out his own AirPods and a custom case. As we walked out, he looked up at me and whispered, "It's not about the stuff." I nodded, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. "I know. It's about respect. You called me a loser. Now you call me the only one who can save you." 3 months passed. I thought it was over. Peaceful even. I focused on Leo, rebuilding a real life. We started fresh. A new, secured college fund, nightly reading rituals, Aikido lessons. He laughed more, slept better. That old heaviness in his shoulders, the one I knew too well from my own childhood, was gone. But ghosts, even when exiled, claw back. It started with a 6 a.m. phone call. I saw my mother's name on the screen and already knew. "Your father's in the hospital," she said, voice trembling. "Heart attack. They say he needs a procedure. We can't afford it. The court, it took too much. He's asking for you." For Leo, I stayed silent. "He regrets it," she added, barely audible. "Please, just come see him." I hung up, and I didn't go. A week later, a letter arrived from my aunt, one of the few who had stayed out of the mess. Inside was a newspaper clipping. Longtime councilman Graham Turner hospitalized after cardiac complications. Family struggles financially after legal issues. Beneath it, a GoFundMe link. Goal: $40,000. Raised: $3,200. Top comment: "Hope the son finds it in his heart to forgive." Donation from Nina Turner: $10. I hope he gets a second chance. As a father, as a grandfather. Pathetic. A few days later, another call. Unknown number. I didn't plan to answer, but something, curiosity or closure, made me swipe. "Hey, son." The voice was thin, hollow. "I don't sleep anymore. I think about it. About what I did to Leo. The rock. The look in his eyes. I thought I was being funny. Turns out I was being cruel. Just like I've always been." Silence stretched between us. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said. "But if he ever showed up, I'd know it's not over. That maybe I still have a chance." I let that sink in. Then I said, "Leo made a custom phone case at school." He waited. "It says, 'Only good boys get toys.'" My father let out a small breath. "That's good." I nodded. I asked him what it meant. He said, "It means bad grandpas don't have grandsons anymore." Then I hung up, and I didn't call back. A week later, I found myself back in the old neighborhood, parked near the same tired strip mall where Leo's infamous birthday prank had unfolded. Only this time, I wasn't walking in blind. I spotted them immediately. What remained of my family clustered beneath a faded awning. My father slumped in a wheelchair, frail and ghost-like. My mother fussing beside him, her eyes darting. Nina pacing in front, handing out flyers that read, "Help Graham Turner. Family matters most," with a QR code slapped across the bottom like a price tag on redemption. I stood across the lot, just watching. Nina noticed me first. Her face lit up in something halfway between relief and false hope as she jogged toward me. "You came," she breathed. "I knew you weren't as cold as you pretend to be." I said nothing. She pushed on, desperate. "We were wrong, all of us, but we're still family." I met her gaze and let the words fall like stone. We were a cult, where love was conditional, and money was the god you worshipped. Status, control, image, and now that God has failed you. Her smile cracked. "This isn't about money," she started, but I cut her off with a glance at the paper in her hand. "Then why does your flyer have a QR code and not an apology?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. I turned my back and walked away. Leo was waiting in the car, watching through the window with the quiet wisdom of a soul that had seen too much, too young. When Nina caught sight of him, she lifted her hand to wave, but he didn't move, didn't blink, just stared through her like she was another stranger begging for something she no longer had the right to ask for. That's when it hit me. Leo had already learned what took me decades. We drove off, and in the rearview mirror I saw Dad trying to rise from his chair, reaching one trembling hand toward us like he could pull time backward, like guilt could ever undo cruelty. But I was already gone. That night, Leo and I sat curled up on the couch in our small, cluttered living room, popcorn in a bowl between us, a movie flickering across the screen. "Do you miss them?" I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. He thought about it. "I miss who they could have been," he said quietly, "but I'm glad I've got you." My throat tightened. He leaned his head against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around him, closing my eyes as warmth spread through me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the disappointment. I wasn't the loser. I wasn't the scapegoat in someone else's performance of love. I was the father who showed up. The man who said, "Enough." The one who didn't flinch when the house of lies came crashing down. I didn't lose my family that day. I started building a new one that began with a boy who deserved more, and a dad who finally learned how to give it.